I'm your host, Alan Bennett, and our guest today, our entrepreneur of today, is Holly Skinner. Welcome to the show, Holly.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, as I talk to all these entrepreneurs from Arkansas, everybody has their story and where they got started, and every little piece of introduction to entrepreneurship is very unique. So we all have our stories, and I want to get right to it. How did the entrepreneur bug bite you? Where did this come from?
Yeah. So I grew up in Central Arkansas, and my dad is a pediatrician. So I grew up around healthcare my entire life, watching his journey kind of being a private practice provider. And luckily for him, he had my mom who basically ran the ship. She took care of all the office stuff, the admin, the billing, all of the things. So healthcare was always kind of in my blood. And I started to work. I got my master's in healthcare administration, went straight to work in the hospital setting, and started to see a lot of people that were very similar to my dad if he had not had my mom. So people that wanted to be providers, wanted to give care, wanted to have their own practices, but didn't necessarily want to deal with the business side of things and the administration side of things. So kind of seeing that unmet need, I was like, okay, maybe this is a gap that I can try and bridge. So since I had the administration background and had been around healthcare pretty much my entire life, started to reach out to friends of mine, in particular, friends of mine that had graduated with social worker degrees or physical therapy degrees, and talk to them about, would you want to start your own practice? If so, what's holding you back? And just as I suspected, a lot of it was, I don't know the business side of things. I don't want to fight with insurance. I don't want to deal with that. And so that's what prompted me to start Skinner Solutions, is to offer that service to where our clinicians can just focus on their patients and not have to worry about anything else. We can assist with administrative support like scheduling, and we can assist with billing things, fighting with insurance, all of those pieces, so that they're able to stick to what they're good at and focus on that patient care.
Okay. So this was you being basically I'll call it a spectator of
Yep.
what what life was like for a private practice physician. Was he in a group or was he by himself?
He was solo. He started out in a group and then went solo. And so that, of course, has its own, because then even more is on your plate. And so I got to see the joy of going solo and having that autonomy that, again, a lot of practitioners want. But you have to have that support to handle the business and admin side of things in order to actually be successful.
Yeah, my day job is a business coach, and I work with businesses that are trying to get ready for sale. How can I get the most amount of money for my business? That's kind of the world I live in. And one of the things that I find, especially in the trades or in people that work with their hands or the primary, like if I don't go to work, I don't get paid, which
Yep.
doctors fit in that category,
Yep.
lawyers fit in that category. So when a service provider, if they don't see the doctors don't
Yep.
see patients, therefore there's no billing that occurs.
Exactly.
So share a little bit about what kind of mindset that a physician may have with a burden like that. And I'm gonna call it a
Yeah.
burden, right?
Yeah. So what I've noticed with the providers that I work with is it kind of goes one or two of two ways. One, they either get very discouraged and just join a health system, even if that's not necessarily lining up with the lifestyle that they want, or they struggle with, like you were saying, their time is money, right? So if they are able to take some of these administrative tasks off of their plate, they can see more patients. So that's where a lot of my clients come from, is they finally overcome that hurdle and see, yes, it's an investment to get outside support, but I'm now able to see 4 more patients a day or whatever the case may be. And so, like you said, it kind of balances out and their time is actually able to produce revenue again.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go down that path in a minute, but
Yeah.
I'm going to pump the brakes right here. So you identify the need. So you have a personal connection to seeing this happen for physicians.
Yep.
It's all right. So share a little bit about. So let's, in plain terms, you saw a need, you
Yep.
saw a gap that needed to be filled, a service that could be provided to help them get from A to B.
Uh-huh.
All right. So you identified it. Now it's time to actually start our business and do it. Talk a
Yep.
little bit about that transition time. What is that like? What's that? What'd you go through to get that
Oh,
done?
yes. That's the fun part. That's kind of the gut check moment. So
Yes.
for me, what I did, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs probably do this, is I kept my day job. So I still worked at the hospital while I was kind of evaluating what's the market need for my type of business, what are my ideal clients that I would want to work with, what kind of pricing structure would I have. So I continued to work in the hospital setting and kind of built this in the evenings and weekends, if you will. And then kind of just, like you said, took the leap and took that risk with the first client. I had a really good friend that is a social worker and wanted to start her own practice. And since we already had a relationship, she was willing to trust me to launch it for her. And so she was kind of my guinea pig. And we got it up and running, got her credentialed with the insurance companies, got her a full caseload. She was getting paid what she was wanting to get paid. And so very quickly after the success of her practice, it was referral. I would say probably 90% of my clients are from referrals. And so very quickly it became apparent to me that, oh, she's not the only one that needs this. There are lots of people. It was kind of proving my point because I had that hypothesis if I think this is a need. And so getting her launched and then seeing the response to referrals coming from her kind of confirmed that, okay, this is a need and we can actually do this. So did both for about a year, kept my day job, and then did the support in the evenings and weekends. And then probably 9 months in, started to replace my corporate salary and was able to step away and do this full time.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that. Quitting that job, right?
Yes. Yes.
Cutting
Yes.
the cord, as they say.
That just made my stomach drop just remembering it.
And it's a real thing. There's this excitement on
Yeah.
one hand, and I am so convinced this is going to work because I know who I'm serving and how I'm going to serve them. And then there's the do it part.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about what type of support you had to make that transition over. We all
Yeah.
have mentors, or we all have
Yeah.
people that we lean on for that. What did that look like for you?
So I think it was several different things for me. Interestingly enough, a lot of my family was kind of against it because my dad had lived the private practice life. He knew the stress, he knew the burden. And so he was like, why would you want to take all of this on? Why would you want to add this stress to your life? And both him and my mom are kind of the mindset of you stay with the company for X amount of years, you retire into that company, you follow the, recipe. And so it was interesting because I would at first listen to them and start to doubt myself. But I think what ultimately kind of prompted me to take that leap was I knew my degree was still going to be there. I knew my skill set was still going to be there. I knew my education was still going to be there. So if I launched this business and it totally bombed, worst case scenario is I go back to a hospital job. So if I'm already doing quote unquote worst case scenario, might as well take the leap and see what happens. And so that was really the moment for me that I was like, it's at least worth trying. And then combine that with the fact that I'm a big student. I love to read and learn and watch all the things. And so I just devoured as much content as I could from entrepreneurs and seeing example after example after example of people succeeding continue to kind of build up my confidence that, okay, I could probably do this too.
Yeah. Yeah. By default, I've ended up in the world of trust, right? It's about trust.
Yeah.
And referrals are based on trust. And as you went through this journey, now let's kind of fast forward a little bit where you're now doing it. All right. So we cut the cord, we're doing our thing. We got one or two little clients, and we're kind of the wheels are turning, but they're not turning fast enough. Where was that next push, if you will, that kind of got you moving a little bit better?
So it's interesting. I think one of the big pushes for where my field in particular was I didn't realize what a network of therapists and physicians, what kind of networks they had internally. So, for example, I support a lot of private practice mental health providers. Well,
Mm.
there's bukus of Facebook groups where People are supporting each other, talking about things they're struggling with. So there really became a vast referral network just from things that I wasn't even having to pursue, because somebody would post in a Facebook group, do you know a good billing company? And so things really started to grow like that. So I had the benefit of kind of these preformed professional networks that really helped me. And then surprisingly, COVID was a really big catalyst for my business,
Yeah.
because when I first started out, 90% of my discovery call with potential clients was convincing them that we could support them remotely. It was convincing them that remote work can work. This is possible. After COVID, everybody knows that. Everybody knows you can have remote support. So it took that whole barrier and that whole fear and that whole hesitation around having someone not in your office supporting you
Yeah.
and made it kind of normal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned mental health, because I know the code 90833.
Yep.
And I'm sure you live that life.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, and I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but
Yeah.
let's talk about collaboration.
Yep.
In the world of collaboration, what does that look like for you? How do you serve that? How do you juggle? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I think the collaboration for me really comes in the fact that I quickly learned that I had to build a robust team that had diverse skill sets. Because again, my background was in healthcare administration. I was not a certified biller and coder. I knew enough to be dangerous, but I wasn't in the weeds of all of that. So very quickly, I kind of identified these are the needs that our clinicians are having, and what people do I need on my team to collaborate with me to be able to meet these needs. So built up a team of credentialing specialists, billers and coders, administrative support people, and really kind of in that team collaboration, we were able to become a one-stop shop for our practitioners.
Yeah. Yeah. Now when you form these collaborations, you made it sound like it happens real fast.
I
And
wish.
yeah, so that was my lead in here. That's a very strategic process. Yeah. So talk a little bit about how you, when you decided, I need to partner with somebody that has a strength here.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did it evolve? Kind of talk a little bit about that.
So I did have, since I had started to really devour a lot of content from entrepreneurs, I did learn about things like Upwork and different things like that, where you could find people with very specialized skill sets that were looking for contract work. And so started to kind of dabble in places like that I knew people with skills were living, right? And they were looking for work. And then from there, I had to really kind of do a gut check of what's important to me, because I could have somebody on the team that has 26 degrees that doesn't know how to talk to a patient. You know what I mean? So it was very important for me when I was collaborating and kind of trying to build out my team to realize that in my mind and in the line of work and the service that I want to provide to our clinicians, that customer service and that ability to learn and be willing to work hard kind of trumps the traditional qualifications, if you will. So of course, everybody on my team has the skill set and the training that they need, but I really started to look for those kind of untangible things of, okay, this person can really communicate well, or this person can really prioritize their task well, or this person really values teamwork and collaboration. And so I think that, again, it takes longer because you're looking for a very specific type of person. But once you have it, the value is worth the wait.
Yeah. So do you use talent assessments like DISC or any of the programs? Yep.
I haven't. What I used was on Upwork and on LinkedIn, I believe. They have certain skill tests so that the candidates can take and you can see their scores. So like, how did they do on, ICD-10 coding, things like that. So that helped kind of take the elimination, like that eliminated the, does this person even know what they're doing sort of question.
Right.
And then as far as the kind of personality side, I really kind of have an extensive meeting with potential team members before I bring them on, because for me, it really is kind of like a vibe check almost of how do you handle yourself? How do you communicate? How do you work? Because I think some of the skills, a lot of the skills can be taught if the person is willing to learn and has that personality skill set.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'm reading between the lines. As my wife says, I'm projecting onto another person.
Yep.
What I'm hearing is it sounds like you were looking for what value do they bring beyond the X's and the O's.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Because I've had people on my team member, I mean, of course, working with the team for over 5 years now, there's turnover. And I've had team members that have been really, really great and able to hit the mark on deliverables, but couldn't collaborate well and couldn't communicate well, things like that. So they weren't a fit, even though they were checking the boxes of completion of tasks, because they didn't have that, intangible skill set of how to relate to people. Because that's what we're doing. We're serving people all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can't communicate effectively, alphabet soup after your name doesn't,
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about now you've got a team assembled and we're moving. So every business owner I talk to, they always go through these cycles. And the hope is that cycles are trending up. So as you go through these cycles and you run into obstacles, and the obstacles can come in all forms, right? It be the worst day ever. So when you go through these obstacles and you've got to let's say course correct on your navigation through that murky water, what does that look like as far as how when you are working with your cohorts in this, what does that, when you have to reassess and course, what does that look like?
I think the biggest thing is, since I'm careful about the team that I'm assembling, and I know that we have a team that values open communication and values feedback and things like that, it's nice because then when I do have to course correct and bring a correction or discuss an error or something like that, the person that I have on my team, I've already picked to have that level of emotional intelligence to be able to receive that sort of feedback and actually correct as a result of that feedback. Yeah. So I think that kind of sets me up for success when we do hit issues, because I have team members that, one, trust me. They know that I'm not going to bring them something just to be nitpicky. And two, they have the emotional intelligence about themselves to be able to learn from mistakes, accept responsibility when they do mess up, things like that. So we're able to course correct without a lot of, problems and a lot of conflict, because I've established that sort of personality on the team to begin with, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does to me. So just for the people that are listening to this, let's spend just a few minutes on emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
I know it's a hot topic amongst a lot of people, and how you use that. So emotional intelligence, for those that aren't familiar with it, let's kind of you and I kind of talk through how emotional intelligence is beneficial and how we use it to help the business and serve the clients.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, which again, I'm probably, digressing from the actual textbook definition, but in my mind, emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and communicate effectively your own emotions, and also be receptive to people discussing them with you, if that makes sense. So again, if I have a team member that's made a mistake, if they're high in emotional intelligence and they are confident in themselves and they know how to communicate well, if I come to them with that mistake, they're not immediately getting defensive or making excuses or getting mad, because they understand back and forth communication is required for a good company and for a good business and good customer service. So they're open to those things and able to actually reflect on their actions, take responsibility where they need to, and move forward in a way that's not, angry or upset.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I talk with people, one of the things that I try to connect emotional intelligence with is trust. I think those two run parallel. They hold hands as you go down that journey, because what you just described, there's a level of trust that needs to exist in order for that to take place.
Exactly.
So now let's go down that rabbit hole of trust.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that, as far as when you're building your business, and what the level of trust that you're looking for or you're trying to achieve. What does that look like?
Yeah. So for me, obviously, with our clinicians, our biggest thing, and the thing that I think sets us apart, is we really want to be an integrated part of their clinic. We want to get to know their patients, even though we're not at the front desk. We want to get to know their patients. We want to get to know their practice preferences, things like that.
Mhm.
So I think when I come to my team, they know that I'm doing that from a place of their best interest. They trust that if I'm bringing them any sort of feedback or things like that, it's in order for the practice to have a good end result and for them themselves to have a good end result. So I think I'm very transparent with my team. Like, of course, they don't know the ins and outs of every spreadsheet, but they know where we're standing with things. They know what's expected of them. I quickly correct errors so that, again, they know what falls within their job description, what expectations I have for their role. And I also feel like I foster a safe place where they can come to me. So there's lots of times that we'll go down the road and I'll say, we're going to use this software. It's the best software ever. You guys are going to do it like this and you'll love it. And a weekend, they'll be like, this makes my job harder, or this takes me longer, or I don't like the way this works. And I've tried to make an environment where they can come to me and tell me that. So it's not like a boss employee, like hierarchy relationship where they have to feel any sort of intimidation. They trust that I'm going to be honest with them and they can be honest with me, and their job is safe. It's not going to affect their role with the company.
Okay. All right. I'm going to take another left turn on you.
I'm buckling up.
So since you brought back feedback and constructive criticism, that's my word. You didn't say that's my word. I'm throwing that one in the hopper.
Yep.
But let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurship and building that team. And, there's feedback in all different forms and listening skills, because
Yep.
that's we've been living in this whole emotional intelligence, trust, conversations. As you grow your business, as it starts to expand and you add people, how do you work through that? Or how do you, before you bring somebody on, what kind of thought process are you going through?
Yeah. So again, I think from the beginning, like as soon as somebody's hired, I try to make it very clear that we have open communication on this team. If there's something that concerns you or that is making your job harder, you are safe to bring that forward. So I try to kind of foster that from the very beginning with my team members. What it made me think of, though, and I remember when I first started out before I had a team, I remember there would be times that my clients would bring me criticism. So they didn't like the way I did something, or something came back wrong, or they had an issue with the way something was done. And in the beginning of my journey with this company and starting out, I saw the business and myself as one. So if somebody would bring me criticism about the work, I would take that as a personal assault and feel like they don't like me. They're not going to want to keep working with me. I wasn't very emotionally intelligent. And so I would get, offended and like, oh gosh, because I had made Skinner Solutions and Holly Skinner one entity. And so the longer I was in the business and the longer that I developed my skill sets, the more I started to see that business and me are separate, right? Of course, they're very intertwined, but they're separate.
Yeah.
If somebody is coming with feedback on how something was done business-wise, or they're coming with a suggestion or with an issue or a problem, they're not attacking me personally. They're wanting what's best for their business, and they're trying to move forward together in a more successful way. So I think that I had to kind of learn to trust myself in that process as well, and to learn that when things come back and criticism comes back and communication comes back, that it's not a direct reflection of me as a person, right?
Yeah. Folks, that was a great lesson in EQ 101. That is emotional intelligence 101. Well said, Holly.
I'm glad it made sense, because I remember at the very beginning, it's tough.
Yeah. So let's talk about Skinner Solutions and the next phase. What is innovation? What does the next phase look like? How are you growing?
So we have several things in the works. The first thing for me is we're going through a rebranding. So when I first started the business, I think I did what a lot of people do, and I thought I needed to follow the perfect entrepreneur blueprint. So all my pictures needed to be in blazers. I needed to have this kind of website. So even if it wasn't authentic to me and how I run my business and how I go day to day, I felt like I had to do it, right?
Mhm.
So now that we're on year 5 or 6, we're doing a rebrand to show my personality more, have my dog in pictures. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
really speak to the fact that we're humans behind the screen and we want to support you as a human, and help you have business success. Of course, we're going to work hard, but we can also have that comfort of showing who we are and being authentic. So that's number one, is the rebrand. And then the second thing that I've noticed over the past few years is we've had lots of potential clients reach out who want to work with us, want support,
Mm.
but there's so much in the beginning stage that they can't fiscally afford it. But to get to the point where they can afford it, they need support, right? So we're starting to look at the idea of either group classes or different things like that, where these folks that are brand new can get a little bit less intensive support, but they can get the support that they need to make their practice grow and start producing revenue so that they can then bring on billing support full time or administrative support. So there was kind of that unmet need of the people that are in that in between of they know they want to launch, but they can't afford full time support. But the only way they're going to get to afford that is by having some sort of support. So that's kind of what we're looking at now, is bridging that gap between the two.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, the people that are your clients, right? They're highly educated. They go through, whether it's med school or some form of learning, whether it's
Yep.
college and then to specialize and go through the years that it takes to be an LCSW.
Oh, yes.
Right. So they're highly trained in that, but they're never in the process, even through med school and residency. They don't know anything about running a business unless somebody
Exactly.
teaches them, right? They don't
Exactly.
have time to learn it.
Yep.
Right? So that's where you fit in.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Well, this has been great. So one last question to kind of wrap it up. And I promise, I always say this. I know people that listen to this thing are going, oh, here he goes again. If you could write a note back to yourself right before you decided to start this business, like, heads up, Ollie, here it comes. What would be one thing that you might say?
Oh, to narrow it down to one is tough. I think I would tell myself, so one of the books that I read at the very beginning of my journey was Marie Forleo's Everything is Figure Outable. And so I think I would leave that in the note, because it's so easy when you look at the big picture of starting a business and finding clients and marketing to get very overwhelmed. But we live in an age where everything is figure outable. You can find an expert, you can Google, you can read, you can find these things out. So I think that would be one thing that I would remind myself. And two, I would remind myself that it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. So I think what's funny is a lot of times when people hear that I own a business, they're like, oh, that's so great. You make your own schedule. And I'm like, that means it's 24/7. So I think I would kind of brace myself for, yes, you're not going to be sitting on the couch eating bonbons, but it's going to be worth it because you're going to be able to see direct results with all of your clients. You're going to see a strong, robust team that loves their work, and you're going to have every day a win that you're going to tangibly be able to see. So kind of reminding myself that it's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's fantastic. Yeah. Can you write that letter to me? Can you
Yeah,
send
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll put that in the mail.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on today. This has been great. This is
Thank
a
you so
great
much.
interview. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.